Many of you have been writing to me about this idea that there's a plan in place to steal the election for Republicans, for Trump, and that's why Trump says, doesn't really matter if Nikki Haley supporters vote for me. This is why they don't seem worried by the concerning polls in so many critical states. And what many of you have written to me about is the potential plan to disrupt polling places such that people just aren't able to vote or choose not to vote because of intimidation that's going on. And I want to take this seriously because to some degree, we know that they're planning it. To some degree, they've said, we want law enforcement. Keep an eye, Trump said. Keep an eye. We need our police officers keeping an eye on people at the polling places, suggesting intimidation. We've heard about plans to have election workers challenging voters' eligibility and all these different things. But this is a bigger question. This is a question of straight up disrupting and creating chaos at polling places. So here's sort of like a little outline of how Trump and Trump supporters might try to suppress voting in just a few weeks with civil unrest, like straight up generating chaos. So first and foremost, how would they plan it? We know how they would plan it. It's social media platforms, the encrypted apps, the Telegram, the Signal, straight in broad daylight in the comment sections of Rumble and Truth Central and whatever else. And what they would plan to do is do mass gatherings at key polling locations. They would focus on battleground states. You might say, oh, but that's not a strategy you can do nationally. They don't need to do it nationally. There's no reason to do this in California. Trump's going to lose California by millions of votes. They would say, here's the 5 states most likely to determine this election. And those states right now seem like they would be, listen, certainly Pennsylvania, Georgia. It's looking like North Carolina could be one of those. Arizona, Nevada. If you want to make it 6 states, you include Wisconsin in there, right? You can say, here's 4, 5, 6 states. These are the key states. Let's find the critical polling locations that we know skew left. So you say, all right, here's my 5 key states. The rural votes in these states are more Trump leaning. The urban votes in these states are more Democratic leaning. So we will target the urban polling places in these 5 states. And then you start spreading misinformation and conspiracy theories about voter fraud and rigged elections. That justifies the need for being there on election day. And then you just start organizing groups of agitators, say, here's the polling stations, here's the states, urban areas, predominantly minority voters, and use rhetoric about we've got to protect the vote. That's why we're going to be here. So then election day comes. They mobilize these groups. If it's legal to carry guns in certain states within certain numbers of feet of the polling places, they go as far as you can legally go. Maybe they go beyond the law too, but they certainly go as far as you can legally go with the displays of weapons. They create a sense of chaos outside the polling places. Where they can, they try to blockade or appear to blockade entrances at polling stations, make it difficult for people to get in, especially during the peak voting hours. This will start generating multiple things. Number one, it will start generating longer and longer lines as the polling places may be understaffed to deal with this. Number two, they begin to generate chaos as police start being called out and the presence of police and crowds start to create a sort of chaotic, disrupted effect for people who show up and want to vote. And then, and this is where it can get more risky, you start provoking civil unrest. You stage confrontations, maybe with law enforcement or election officials, and try to provoke a response that maybe gets some of these polling places shut down. You engage in clashes with counter-protesters, or if there's no counter-protesters, with voters themselves to make people say, do I want to vote? It looks like this could get violent. I'm getting scared off. Is it safe here? I'm just not sure. And then maybe you even utilize the large gatherings to try to overwhelm the polling places. And maybe some of them say, we've got to temporarily shut down. Now, all of this is always based on a sort of undergirding of misinformation. You use disinformation campaigns in advance. And while this is going on, you say, hey, these polling places are under attack. Don't go. Causes confusion. People are working. They're planning to vote between getting out of work at 4:45 and picking up their kids at 5:15. Oh, I don't know. I've heard it's dangerous. Maybe I don't go. Any even remotely chaotic or violent incident, you amplify it, which further creates unrest and creates the need for more armed police response. And in the middle of all of it, you start pushing news. We have learned of large-scale election fraud. They are stealing the entire thing. Get out there and help us physically intervene to stop the fraud. And if they're smart, which, smart, clever, I don't know the right word. If they're prepared, they simultaneously have lawyers ready with lawsuits or legal maneuvers to say operations at these polling places are illegal. By the way, they will argue the chaos they caused now means the polling place must be shut down, or we can't guarantee the integrity of the ballots. They must be discounted or whatever. And then you just keep it going after Election Day for as long as you can. Now, do I think that this is likely? The full plan I just outlined, I don't think is actually likely. At the same time, they've admitted that some elements of this they plan to do. Lawyers ready for spurious legal arguments, they have. So check, that they have. The desire to see voters intimidated, either by law enforcement or protesters or adversarial election workers, that they have. We know they have that. What we don't know is whether the plan as I just outlined it is something that they're really thinking about. But a dozen or so of you have written to me saying it's what you're worried about, and I understand the concern.